Welcome back. As we fire up the studio for the day, I thought I'd take an opportunity to answer a couple of questions that one of our subscribers had. The first question regarding Tesla's new Ultra Pack, the modern version or the next generation version of their power pack, as well as addressing solar-powered electric vehicles for a moment. Now, by that I'm not talking about powering your car on solar. I'm talking about actual solar-powered vehicles. But first, I would like to give a shout out and a big thank you to Tyler Hilliard, our first Patreon subscriber. How cool is that? And Tyler, if you could reach out to us using Patreon's message system, we have a little thank you gift for you for being our first Patreon subscriber. It's a safety kit so that you can clean your solar panels. It consists of a harness, a safety line, and some rope. And we're going to be doing these giveaways, these thank you gifts for every $100 increment of Patreon subscribership that we have. So that's just kind of a fun little way to show us how much we appreciate what it is you guys are doing. And Tyler, if this is something that you don't feel that you can use or that you want to pass on to another subscriber, then just let us know that as well, and we will bump this on to our next subscriber. So I'm also going to mention just a little bit about Patreon and what it means to us at 12 Wing Productions. So you're obviously all familiar by now with the Energy Sovereignty Project. The Energy Sovereignty Project is designed to run its course at the first of the year. That doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to monitor it. It doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to answer questions and help people out that are interested in energy sovereignty. But we've gotten the data that we need off of it, and I'm already starting to look to the future to see what other things we might be able to bring to you. And one of the things that seemed most important to me was what I'm jokingly referring to as my pet project, the personal electric transport project. And that's what we're going to try and kick off the first of the year-ish. It's not as obviously as important time-wise as kicking off the Energy Sovereignty Project was, but we're going to look at personal transport that may allow us to, at least to some degree, get away from using the car. So what started this off was that we had now gotten to the point where the energy density in batteries had gotten us to the point where the electric transport that is available to us, the personal electric transport now, not vehicles, not cars, but the personal electric transport available to us is so very now not that last mile solution of a 3-mile or 7-mile skateboard or a small electric scooter that can maybe get you 8 or 10 miles. Now we're talking about skateboards that are capable of nearly 30 miles. We're talking about electric bicycles with ranges nearing now 115, 130 miles for some of these electric bicycles. That's intriguing. That's something that I'd really like to look into. And so I'm going to look at 3 different categories of electric transport, personal electric transport, the skateboard / scooter realm, and the folding bicycle realm, something that, you know, obviously you'd be able to then take with you to the office. Both of those, something that you'd perhaps be able to stuff under your desk or at least be able to store relatively easily. And then the last is electric bicycles that are actually capable of carrying cargo. And I'd like your help. If you know of people that are in this industry that might like to have their products showcased, I'd be very happy to have a look at what they have on offer. And the idea behind the Personal Electric Transport Project is to identify those solutions that I feel actually will work, and then we will purchase those solutions and then we will present them to you in a daily use scenario in the exact same way that we presented to you the Energy Sovereignty Project, so that everything remains realistic and supportable. And to do that, we need your help. We need your help. Financial support would really help us be able to achieve these goals quickly, get these things out to you, and also passing these videos around to get our subscribership up. That will also help make things like that possible. And so now I'll leave that to you all to help us out with, and we will get on to this subscriber questions. So we were asked about this, not just by this gentleman here, but also a couple of others had commented not only on our videos, but also on other videos, that they felt that the ultracapacitors must have had something to do with the new UltraPack being 60% more energy dense than their previous offering, the PowerPack. So the first thing when trying to unpack this is I looked at their development timeline. When did they get this bright idea? And so it comes out that this is all not really the result of the ultracapacitors or any development into solid-state batteries that Tesla is doing. This is the result of Australia. So when you start looking at the timeline, what you realize is that the idea for the UltraPack came out of that installation they did in Australia, where they promised to get it done in, I think it was 8 or 9 months, and have it be fully functioning. The Australians called Tesla on that and said, go ahead, send it over. And so they did it. They managed to get it in there in time. But in doing so, it is obvious that they discovered, ooh, well, this is a pain in the ass. Oh, that's a pain in the butt. Oh, this was really difficult to get into place properly, get working properly. And they started to look at all those little elements that were a pain in the butt, and they set to work immediately engineering those out. So now, here's a shot of the original PowerPack as installed, and there are many of these installed in California. I actually visited a couple of them. And what you'll notice here is that those small individual boxes that are on the side, those are the battery units. And then that piece that's in the middle, that is the distribution hub and the inverter. All right? And then there is a large gray tie-in unit. I won't go into too much detail with that, but that basically is where the grid ties in. And so all of those are individual components. Well, when you look at those boxes, each one of those boxes has a radiator. Each one of those boxes has a coolant loop. Each one of those boxes has fans. Well, why? And that, I'm sure, was the immediate question to the people that were looking at how big of a pain in the butt it was to get all of those batteries installed in Australia. Why are we reproducing all of this engineering for each individual battery when what we should be doing is tying them all together? So now here's a shot of the UltraPack. And so right away what you'll notice is that they have all the exhaust and all the cooling on the top. Well, that's where the radiators are. That's where the cooling is. They haven't duplicated radiators, fans, all of that at each individual station. Instead, they're running the coolant among a bank of them. They've also tied them all together in the bottom. And if you look really closely here, I'll try and magnify in a little bit, you'll notice that there are actually the cargo attachments that you'd see on a container. And so that tells me that these things are transported all in one piece. Now, that has obvious benefits in the speed at which they can be installed. So that right off the bat was huge. But the other thing that's happened is that they have condensed them. And so now when you look at the amount of battery power that they're able to get in one of those modules, That is where that 60% increase in energy density comes. And we're talking about with the entire pack now. They didn't, to the best of my knowledge, I was not able to find any information that suggests that they are not using the batteries from basically the same battery that they're using in the Model 3. There's nothing to suggest that they're not. And so until I'm provided with solid information otherwise, maybe somebody out there has more information on what's being used in the Ultra Pack, that's the information that I'm going to go with. So that's the Ultra Pack. That's where that 60% increase in density comes from. It's not from the batteries themselves or ultra capacitors that may or may not be used at some future date. And the second question was regarding the electric cars that we're seeing come out. Now, specifically, I believe this gentleman was referring to a car that we've seen emerge recently called the Lightyear, and you can do some research on that. I'll put a quick photo of it here. Now, I'm going to start off by saying that they have my respect, because this is an actual car. They didn't just CGI this and put it out. I can't tell you how annoying that is to see that, and I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way, that everybody and their mother seems to be doing a CGI rendering of the next Tesla killer. Build it. Build it. If that's what it is, then that's what it is, but build it. So that's why you have companies like Rivian and Bollinger and all these others that are head and shoulders above anybody that you could compare them to. And that's because they're actually doing the work. So, Lightyear, outstanding. You have my respect for actually producing a vehicle. Now, producing a vehicle is a double-edged sword, because it does display what it is you think you're trying to achieve, and it displays it warts and all. And that's, again, back to why we did the Energy Sovereignty Project. We actually physically put that together. We showed you what the numbers are, and there it is. So when you look at people that have managed to get inside the Lightyear and go on it for very short trips. A fantastic series, if you're not familiar with their channel, is called Fully Charged, and that's done by Doug Llewellyn. He's the gentleman that plays the robot on the Red Dwarf series. Fantastic individual, great. He's put together a wonderful channel. I suggest you check it out. He actually does a review, not necessarily a review, but they were there for the reveal of the Lightyear. So let me put up a couple of photos of the Lightyear's interior. So what you can see from here is that it seems that it's put together in as much as it is a complete car. If you look at the seats, the front seats are fairly thin. If you look at the back seats also appear to be fairly flat, fairly thin. Now, there's a reason for that. So the entire inside of this car is incredibly flimsy. And I'm not saying that to denigrate Lightyear. I'm saying that because it has to be flimsy. Because this car is so light that the nearest thing that you can compare it to are these solar racers that went across Australia and other places that were actually the basis for the tech from this vehicle. So, what do you have? You have very narrow tires. You have an understructure of the car that will allow air to pass through. You have a very pointed rear end so that there is very low drag off of the back of the car. The car is denigrated to slower speeds because the resistance and the drag builds up exponentially as you start to accelerate. And the top of it is festooned with solar panels, all the way across the top, all the way across the hood. They may eventually slap some on the doors, who knows. And even with all of that, this car would be barely capable of going even a short distance per day purely on solar power. I'm not going to go into the specs that they give. You guys can look up what they say they are. Real world applications have shown us how much such a light vehicle would actually be able to achieve. You're looking at perhaps 2/3 of the amount of power that it would take to run a Model 3. So I'm not saying that it's not efficient. I'm not saying that it won't move under its own power, it can't recharge or any of that, but that the vehicle itself is not necessarily something people are going to want to own. And so we're in that wrestling match with what the vehicle is capable of and what the salesmen are trying to actually tell you it can do. We haven't even touched on cloudy days, trying to run the thing in winter. Obviously, you'll be able to charge it as well. But what are your sacrifices? Is this going to be just an around the town runabout type of a vehicle? And so there is a more, I don't know if you want to call it realistic approach to this, and that's this vehicle here. And this has been reported as a Toyota project. It's also been reported. I think the underlying vehicle is a Scion. But this vehicle here, it illustrates the other approach, and that is, if you have cheap solar panels, put them everywhere. And the reason being is that if it's as cheap as paint or any other body panel surface, you might as well. And if you happen to be parked in the sunlight, you will gain over the course of a day, maybe 5 miles, 4 miles, you know, somewhere in that range. Now, my studio is only 2 miles from the energy sovereignty project, and if I left the car parked in the driveway, I'd be able to do that maybe most days on the additional sunlight that the car collected. And the reason that I have respect for what I've seen done with this vehicle is that they're realistic. They're not trying to tell you, oh, you're going to be able to run the car on sunlight. You can't. Everybody who's been following the energy sovereignty project knows exactly how much power it takes to run an electric car. A real one that everybody actually wants to own. And you can then look at the consumption differences between cars like the Model 3 and the Model S and the Model X, and then ultimately once they start getting some pickup trucks on the road, you'll actually be able to start to see what kind of range that Rivian really gets, or that the new Tesla pickup truck will actually get, meaning after they build it, after they actually test it. So I hope that answered the questions. The reality, the harsh reality is that you need a decent amount of square footage for your solar panels to be able to collect enough power to actually run a vehicle. Now, when we start talking ultimately about an RV or towing a fifth wheel with Tesla's new pickup truck, then we can have a little bit of a different conversation, because I'm betting you could probably get 12, 14, maybe even 16 panels on the top of a fifth wheel, and that's not counting if you folded out an awning, that type of a thing. And so all the while you are parked, you are using this fifth wheel as its own power supply, its own generator. And you can then use the pickup truck as a runabout. And if you are in a specific area for a protracted period of time, you could gain slightly on the amount of miles that you could put into that truck, until theoretically you could drive out. Even if you had driven into the middle of the desert someplace, you could drive out even if you were out of range of other charging options. So those are fun things to kind of think about. But a actual solar powered car, nope, just not there. Not there. Even if the panels operated at 100% efficiency, it would still be very dicey. It'd be very difficult to imagine that. There are vehicles that do collect enough sunlight to run themselves and even collect more sunlight than they need. I'll put this photo here up of the solar ship that went around the world. One of the comments they had with this was they actually had too many solar panels. And so, again, greatest respect to these guys for doing this project, because they really did it. They didn't just design it in the computer and then say, oh yeah, look at this great thing we did. No, they actually built it and sailed it around the world. And so hope you found that fun, and we'll talk to you soon. Again, as always, good luck with your own systems, and if you have any questions, do leave them in the comments, and we'll see you next time. You're proud, yeah. All right, thanks for joining us. Oh, fantastic.